Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Aurelia Lieb.
I'm Sam Williams.
And I'm Sierra Obermark. And today we have a very, very special returning guest, Woo! Hayley!
Woo! Hello!
Welcome!
Woo! Thank you!
Woo!
Would you please care to remind our dear listeners of just your Potter basics, Hogwarts house, favorite book, favorite character,
etc.? Yes. I am a Ravenclaw, married to a Gryffindor, raising a Gryffindor, a Hufflepuff, and an undetermined. The first two are very clear. My favorite book is Prisoner of Azkaban, and my favorite character is probably Lupin.
Nice.
Yes, I'm going to stick with that.
Nice. So today we're not going to talk about Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, man.
And Lupin does also not feature in this chapter, so...
I'll bring him up somehow.
His godfathery counterpart is mentioned, so we've got that.
Yeah, that'll have to do, I think. Sorry, did I actually cut you off, Hayley? Because...
No, I was just going to answer, well, the last question is how I came to Potter, which is just...
Yes, please.
I just read the books as I grew up with Harry and have always loved it ever since and listened to the whole series on audiobook probably every year for the last 20 years.
Fry or Dale?
I'm committed.
Stephen Fry or Jim Dale? Which one? Pick now.
Jim Dale.
Yeah, good.
Is that the right
choice? No, you blew Aurelia.
That is just wrong.
You.
That's fair.
Dear Lord.
It is quite interesting because I think I was just listening back randomly into the German audiobook, and actually it was Prisoner of Azkaban, and the German narrator, for whatever reason, has chosen to give Lupin a lot of noises in between, so they are like clearly not happening in the book, but like it's just his choice of how to do Lupin's voice,
interpret the character.
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, that throws me back to my childhood.
That's so funny.
Harry, I've chosen a more time to be ill. You didn't choose it at all. It's the moon. It's the moon cycle. What are you talking about choosing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, what are we actually talking about today? Aside from I've already told you it's not Prisoner of Azkaban, we are here to talk about a chapter for episode 62, and it's the 86th chapter in the Harry Potter series, and the 29th chapter in Goblet of Fire, which is called The Dream. So, as always, we encourage you to read the chapter before listening, but, you know, we're not your parent, so you do you. And, but I would say it's a quite cool chapter. There's a lot of cool stuff happening, so it's a good chapter to go back and listen. You know, listen to Fry, Dale, or the Rufus Beck German version. Up to you.
We all know that my chapter summaries will not help you remember what actually happens, so you should go back and read it. A huge shout out and thanks to Sam Amon over at our Patreon, who bought us this round of drinks. Thank you to Sam. Yay! Yay. Thank you, Sam, and thank you for all that you do for the Three
You are
Broomsticks.
delightful.
Yes. If you, dear listener, would like to buy us a round at the pub, head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks, that's with the numeral 3, to sign up. Yes, we have much bonus content. Soon there will be a new season of Quidditch Koala League.
Yes.
Quality Quidditch Koala League, where Aurelia and I will start with Season 2 after the upset of the Americans finishing second over Stuttgart's own Flying Pretzels, which...
Yeah. I'm
enraged
surprised we're still
Aurelia.
friends, Sam.
Because I'm the writer on that season. So yes. Yeah, I made the Americans get second. I still let Oliver Wood win as a 56-year-old man.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's pretty exciting. Montrose Magpies, owned by George Weasley. The magpie has red hair and is called Fred. It's super sweet. Super rip your heart out sad. It's great. Please go over to Patreon. We would really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on at the Three Broomsticks so that we can talk about The Boy Who Lived. Or, as we like to call him here, The Loy Who Bived, Dum Dakai. Harry Potter! We'd like to talk about him.
But before we do that, and jump into talking about Harry Potter, let's quickly talk about Draco Malfoy. Because we have a toast to offer for the comments on the episode 58 and 59 two-parter all about Draco's Detour of Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 6. So we raise our glass to commenter Absent-Minded Raven, who said, "You could think of wand compatibility and allegiance as two separate axes. Hermione's wand is more compatible with Harry, Draco's wand is more loyal to him, so overall they seem about as good as each other. It's also why he prefers to go back to his own wand. It's more compatible than the Elder Wand."
I don't know about that last sentence. Or the last two sentences. I think he prefers to go back to his own wand because he realizes that being the owner of the Elder Wand is going to get him killed. And then I don't think it's more
He's
compatible.
had enough of that for one lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. He just got done with the man who wanted to kill him. Not even because he owned the Elder Wand. A prophecy was like, maybe this tiny baby will mess you up. And Voldemort was like, okay. And Harry's like, well, if that got that guy to want to kill me, imagine what being the Elder Wand owner would do. It's going to be me running away from hordes of people all the time. Plus, Ron was looking hungrily at the Elder Wand, and he didn't want to do it. So, I think that's really why he goes back to his own wand. And also, he can, right? Like, the Elder Wand works great, and it works perfectly on repairing his wand, which nothing else would do. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think part of the problem with a lot of the magic laws and you know, how it's supposed to work, the difficulty is when it comes to Harry, there's always seems to be like a slight exception, or it works slightly differently. So it's always very tricky to say, because you'd be like, I think in an ideal world, this is how it should happen. But then you have Harry Potter here and everything's just sort of slightly different, because, you know, he has a Horcrux of a different man inside him. So it's all a bit wonky.
Wibbly wobbly.
Yeah. Timey-wimey.
Yeah, I think in general that idea makes sense, though, because you have like other ones that you could use and would work and would function, but they might not necessarily have an allegiance to you. But then you also have like, yeah, I think it makes sense that those are kind of two different things, because maybe someone lets you borrow a wand and that would allow you compatibility. Like, and I think that that's probably, in my mind, how hand-me-down wands work.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Neville and Ron are both using technically compatible wands.
Yeah.
They work for them. They probably don't really have an allegiance to them. Because they were just given, they weren't won, they weren't taken, you know, there's none of kind of that thing, which again, we don't know if that's the rule or if that's just the Elder Wand exception, that it has to be one. But with the compatibility of like between family members, it seems to work. But then when they have a wand that's both allegiant to them and compatible with them, then both of their abilities do seem to increase. So I think that it's, especially in Neville's case, I don't know that we see as much of a change in Ron, but definitely in Neville's case, he gets his own wand and having it be both allegiant and compatible seems to really help him. So I think that definitely would make sense, that like a compatible wand is just like, well, you're close enough to maybe the temperament or the relationship to the person who originally owned the wand, so it works. But then you also have like, well, maybe I won the allegiance of this wand by disarming somebody, but it's kind of an icky wand and it doesn't really go with my like core personality or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine like, you know, Hermione gets Dollahov's wand or something like that? It's probably not going to work so well. So, even if she is technically the owner of it, well, maybe in that instance it would, just out of spite. But, yeah, so I think that is an interesting distinction between the two that, when combined together, kind of makes the ideal situation.
Well,
Yeah.
and interestingly enough, it's not just the core that sort of makes this determination. On Pottermore, there's all that information about Wandwood. And I think it's Sycamore, which is mine, that talks about, like, Sycamore wands will spontaneously explode if its owner asks once again to summon its slippers again. Like, the wand itself will get bored with the magic that it's performing. And so I think, you know, you got that mix going on there, plus your previous owner, so you get a wand that's, like, as judgy as Hermione is, and, like, just straight up won't work for Neville in Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do wonder sort of if there's a level of intent behind it as well, because we see Ollivander make a wand for Luna that she doesn't, you know, she just gets gifted. So obviously you have Ollivander, whose whole business is wand making, and so he probably has a very good idea of what type of wands work for a person once he knows the person a little bit.
Yeah, and he spent
I do also
3
wonder
months
if
with
there's
her.
like, yeah, I do wonder if there's a bit of like, I am this specifically making this for this person, so the wand has been given a purpose while it's being created.
Yeah.
I do wonder if that plays a role as well.
Yeah.
I feel like wands are a little bit like cars. Like if you look at a person, you're like, you can kind of guess what car they drive. Like you kind of get a sense for it. And also like, you know, like if the Elder Wand, let's say Harry's wand is like a nice Honda Civic, and he has put a lot of work into it, and he just replaced the timing belt. And then he's given, or, you know, the timing belt breaks. Then, you know, he's like, oh, dang, my wand's totaled. My car's totaled. Then he's given the Elder Wand, which is like a black Ferrari. And he's like, cool, fun for a little while. Like, fix my timing belt, though, and I'll still take my Honda Civic. And you can kind of tell he wouldn't be happy with that black Ferrari later on in life. Some people might, but it just doesn't fit him.
Yeah, that's super true.
I love that.
Ron is absolutely looking at Harry's black Ferrari, being like,
right.
The
He's
kid
like, I've never
already
had a black
inherited-
Ferrari.
I've never had one. I've never even stepped in one. I've never even sniffed one. This is the first time I've seen one.
And also,
He's
Harry
about to buy
already-
a leather jacket and take off into the sunset.
Yeah, I mean, Ron is going to be what Joey Tribbiani does, where he piles a bunch of cardboard boxes and pretends it's his Porsche.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, that's a great comparison. Timing belt snapped. Oh god, the Phoenix Core timing belt! Stitched a bunch of phoenix feathers together and made a timing belt out of it. Your car is magic. That's how Dad did it! Well, good. Excellent. Thank you for the comment, Absent-Minded Raven. On to the chapter summary. Barty Crouch Senior has been to visit after a lovely cup of tea with Vicky Darling and a stroll by the literal forbidden forest. Barty Crouch Senior comes across 2 Triwizard Champion contestants, but never mind all of that. In the aftermath of Bart's disappearance, discussions with Weatherby on weather vanes, a casual slip about how Voldemort's getting stronger, and an eerie demand that he must speak to Dumbledore, Harry, Hermione, and Ron now find themselves deep in the dives of conspiracy, contemplating who stunned Victor, who kidnapped Barty Crouch Sr., and who wore it best, the ferret or Draco?
The ferret.
Okay. But don't worry, Barty Crouch Jr., I mean Moody, was on the trail. You know, the retired Auror whose face looks like cracked clay and who tortures spiders in front of children. He'll be great, I'm sure. In lighter news, Fred and George, yes, they're blackmailing people. Ludo. Harry speculates that Moody, a teacher, would, and I quote here, blast us through the door if we wake him at the crack of dawn, and even Hermione couldn't focus in History of Magic. While Moody doesn't blast anyone this time, he does tell another of the Golden Trio that she should be an Auror, leaving Ron out in the rain to look through the Ministry of Magic windows at his Auror friends playing without him. It's all looking quite bleak, but at least Harry gets a letter from Sirius, which will certainly include words of wisdom, some risky behavioral suggestions, and, well, no, it's essentially Mrs. Weasley's Howler, but with more tact. Harry must prepare for the third task, and divination won't help him on the way to greatness. It does provide him with enough vapor to put him to sleep, where Beta Skeeter can hover and watch him twitch as he's a Horcruxing himself into watching Wormtail not be fed to Nagini. No, Peter will survive his blunder of letting Senior leave, and Nagini will have to wait to eat a human until Harry is available. Harry doesn't wait around this time, showing a level of trust that Dumbledore won't return until he's long dead. He goes to Albus's office, who's currently swatting flies, talking to Fudge, about the possibility that a giantess might be out to kill disgruntled ministry employees. End of chapter.
Yay!
What a summary.
What a summary.
So much in this chapter.
Yeah.
It is, yes. This is sort of like a very typical rolling middle of the book chapter with
Yeah.
we now have enough hints that, the trio goes into the detective mode of, ooh, what's going on? We can start figuring stuff out. But also a lot of foreshadowing for like later in this book, but also later in the series. So there's actually quite a lot of things to talk about. So talking about detective work, the chapter pretty much opens with the trio debating what has happened with Barty Crouch Sr. And actually, I sort of wanted to ask all of you, since Goblet of Fire is a mystery book, what do we think of the Crouch Jr. misdirect and resolution? Because I know sometimes people feel a bit cheated because for all intents and purposes, we get introduced to Crouch Jr. and are told, well, he's dead. So there's a bit of, how could I have guessed that is the person behind him? But then I guess especially reading this chapter, I think there's actually quite a lot of hints dropped in between that you could possibly guess that there's a misdirect.
It's not as bad as the movie, which just completely gives it away because they use the tongue to be like, wah, 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 and then you're like, oh, I see. David Tennant is Brendan Gleeson's dad, whose name is
What?
something. Can't remember what Brendan Gleeson's dad's name is. The guy who plays Moody.
What? No, that is Brendan Gleeson.
Oh, that's Brendan Gleeson. What's his son's name?
It's oh gosh. Oh no. Oh. It's Domhnall Gleeson.
Yes. He plays, what's his name?
Yeah,
This was such good podcasting. Everyone just making,
Admiral Hux.
I understand the narrator for Lupin Moore in Germany, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hux, yeah, he
Bill
plays
Weasley.
Bill Weasley, yep. Not George. He doesn't look like the twins. Anyways,
No.
what was it? Yeah, so it's not, this mystery is not as bad as the movie, which completely gives it away with the tongue action for David Tennant and Brendan Gleeson. But I do think that there's enough at the beginning to show, okay, Winky's by herself, doesn't have Barty Crouch Sr. come along, and also she's dragging an invisible person with her later, and then there's hints dropped throughout. So I think that there's enough there for somebody to have worked it out without it just being like, they said they were dead, and then they were alive conveniently. I think that there's a little bit more to it, although I certainly understand the frustration around the fact that the Marauders were like, nobody here is a junior, so nobody ever will be a junior. Like, there should be no prefixes included on the map whatsoever, and that makes me Team Snape. They're all idiots.
Yeah, I think even if like prior to the chapter previous, you wouldn't have figured it out, I think that there is technically enough, especially with like, he thinks his wife and son are still alive, which is half right. Specifically calling out his son. Even at the beginning of this chapter, they specifically mention that he's talking about his son. And then, if we get the son's name, that's too obvious, I think. Junior. So I think, it toes the line to what you guys are talking about, that I think a lot of people complain about with Sherlock Holmes as well, which is that he figures out the mystery due to some random like off-page information, not giving the reader a fair chance. But I don't think that it goes quite that far. I think there is enough on page that you could figure it out. Maybe not a young kid, because there's just a lot to piece together. But I also think that it's one of those things that are kind of like more satisfying on a second read, because then you can kind of see all of the hints and everything. But speaking of Sherlock Holmes for a second, I recently heard someone describe it as superhero crime and not a mystery, which I think is awesome. And I now subscribe to this idea that it's a superhero crime instead of a mystery novel, because they said that his superhero ability is his mind and his powers of observation, and then he's solving crimes. And it's not a mystery for everybody else to figure out. It's superhero crime. So, and I was like, I love this. Yes, please.
That makes sense.
It also explains how he survives jumping off a waterfall to kill his arch nemesis.
Yes, exactly.
He just lands with one knee down in the water and it saves him.
Blade pose.
I think this chapter does a very effective job of halfway through summarizing key points about the mystery, but also leading you in the wrong direction. Because, like, if as a kid reading this, it was like, oh yeah, Harry, Hermione, and Ron are absolutely right. They've been right about everything. And then you kind of look back at the last 3 books and you're like, well, Hermione was right about things. But
has they?
She was right about the basilisk. None of them knew that Sirius was Harry's, like, actual friend. Nobody knew that the rat was Wormtail. I don't know that they're going to be right. So it's a nice little right-wrong direction where you're like, okay, I'm headed in the right direction, but I have been given information that gives me wrong ideas, which I think is effective.
I think also what makes this, to Sarah's point, what makes this probably trickier for someone, quite young reading it, is that there's so many different detective type works scenario happening. In this chapter alone, we have the main, whodunit type thing, but we also have Fred and George are up to something. So what is that? And we're sort of getting nicely distracted by side quests almost.
Fred and George, they're the ones who killed Barty Crouch Sr. They're blackmailing his dead body.
That's like story of my life. Just like distracted by side quests.
Yeah.
If I ever write a memoir, that's what it is.
And distracted by side quests.
Because like they're debating this whole thing, and then Fred and George walk in, and then now we're on to a completely different topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But while they're debating what actually is going on, and they do this in the owlery, Ron's first attempt at a guess is, it's definitely Crumb, right? And I was just like, yeah, okay, Ron.
Yes, Ron, you always look so good in green. Never change.
Never change. And then get divorced because you don't deserve Hermione.
Yeah.
That's a whole mess nobody's willing to walk down. And
I will always walk down that mess, and they should absolutely not be married. Anyways, no, I think it's interesting here that he blames Crumb, because I remember at one point, when I think Hermione's like, what, Crumb stunned himself, did he? And I'm like, yeah, but that's exactly what Ron would do. Like, Ron would absolutely be like, and then I'll just stun myself. And then I won't look like the victim. And I'm sure he's done that many times.
But then we get a lovely... If without Ron's idea on that one, we don't get Jim Dale's perfect reading of the line, and Mr. Crouch evaporated, did he?
Yeah, Jim Dale. Woo!
Every time I am reading this chapter and I get to that line, I always it's like I hear a lot of the books in Jim Dale's voice because of having listened so many times, but there's certain lines that just always stick out that I can't read any other way. And that is one of them.
Yeah. I like also that Ron does indeed get stunned later in this chapter. This is his comeuppance.
True.
But then the trio does what the trio does best when they're stuck and don't know who to blame. They blame Snape.
Womp womp. Sorry, Snape. Yeah.
Well, eventually it becomes true.
Yeah, true. But we have to have him as a red herring enough times that we're not expecting it when it finally happens, which I do appreciate. Yeah. Also, another little like, hey, Animagus, that's a thing, remember, guys? Because Snape can't fly like a bat, but someone else can fly. And she's lurking in the next 2 scenes from now.
She is lurking, absolutely. Do you think that Rita Skeeter, who I've nicknamed Beta Skeeter in this chapter...
I am all here for it.
No notes. Do you think Beta Skeeter, that she, sometimes when she's like perched on the kitchen counter in her flat in London, just like leans over and falls completely because she's expecting wings to take her off? Like, she just completely confuses which body she's in at times.
I don't know about that. Maybe if she spends enough time as a beetle,
I spends all the time as a beetle. Like, she has beetle
true.
children
She does spend
at this point.
Oh God!
I think if I were an animagus though, something small like that. This is just because you said kitchen counter, so that just made me think of it. I am horrible at like cooking for myself. Like I have this inability. I can feed other people. But I can't, like, cooking for myself, I'm like, I don't want to plan this out. I'll just eat whatever's sitting here. Yeah. And so if I could just turn into a beetle and then just, like, eat a few crumbs and then turn back into myself and be full, like, man, that's the life right there.
Can't wait for when a spider catches you in that form and you forget to turn back.
No, thank you.
It's funny that your mind went there, Sierra. Like, I can tell what state of mind you're at in this point in your life. And I would say for mine, I think the first thought I had was, you know how much money she would save if her house was beetle-sized instead of human-sized? Forget flat in London. What about the tin can down the alley that you could convert into a mini mansion for pennies? And just live as a beetle and just be so happy and luxurious.
That's incredible.
So true. So true.
Such a something-year-old thing to say.
I know.
I think another hint here with Snape is also that Snape can't fly, but he will be in the future because he's the one Death Eater who learns from Voldemort how to fly without a wing.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Neat.
Truly destined to be a bat.
For real.
Yes.
And that's, it's really unfortunate that in Cursed Child they made it that Quidditch is no longer played on brooms, but by Snape only.
Everybody takes turns riding on the back of Snape.
We're serving Snape today.
Oh, boy.
Mickey 17, but it's Severus Snape as a broom. That's funny.
Oh my gosh. I literally just got that movie. I ordered it and I just got it and I'm very excited to watch it.
Well, watch it tonight and you'll just think of him as Snape the whole time and you'll be like, that's hilarious. Sam's funny.
Okay.
I like that part of the instruction is to think that Sam's funny.
Yep, it's in the instruction.
It has to be instructed. Done.
all these laughs on the podcast are written into the doc. They're all
yes. Wait, Sam gives us stage
Sierra
instructions.
laughs here.
Sierra makes fun of Sam here instead. Yes, excellent. Now we've evened it out. The audience will suspect nothing.
So while the trio is debating this in the owlery, they are getting interrupted by Fred and George Weasley, and they can hear them coming. So this is distraction number one from the main detective work, because they can hear them talking about blackmailing someone. And I just love this exchange that then happens where they're like, what are you doing here? Well, Ron and Fred say that. And then sending a letter, Harry and George. And then, what at this time? Said Hermione and Fred. So,
Love it.
Perfect little exchange.
It's so good. I love it because we often get, Fred and George saying things in unison or finishing each other's sentences and things, but we don't often get them doing that with other people. And so I just love how it's like everybody's being really shady.
Fine. We won't ask you what you're doing if you don't ask us.
It's funny that they automatically go into, Fred and George must be involved in the plot that we are trying to figure out. No other person could have any other thing going on than what we are doing right now.
Yeah.
They must have something to do with this. Like, every shady thing that happens in Hogwarts is all for the same purpose.
There's not room at Hogwarts for two
Like,
shady
you remember.
things.
Right, you remember how young they are.
It's just so funny because it's not like there was the sinister cabal by Fred and George to steal the Sorcerer's Stone and then to have their own sister be soul-sucked by Voldemort until she died. Like, they know that Fred and George... Fred and George, you could probably actually maybe think, well, they gave Harry the Marauder's map, which led to everything else. Like, that's the only one that you might be able to be like, there's a sinister cabal for this. But the previous two books, they do a bunch of messed up stuff without having to kill anybody or do anything evil. So,
I love, and then I love the next little bit with like, careful, Ron, your prefect Percy is showing.
Yeah, it's quite cool because it's like, carry on like this and you'll be made prefect. Well, guess what happens?
Ron doesn't carry on like that, and he still gets turned into a prefect.
Oh, man. I think it's so good, though, because George just straight calls him out on it. He's like, he's like, you're going to be made a prefect. You're gonna, you're starting to sound like our dear older brother.
I also like that this is clearly the moment that then gives Harry the idea to give the twins his gold winnings.
Yeah.
Because this is when this is really the only time that Ron even confirms saying they are really serious about starting this business. They just need money.
Mm-hmm. Harry probably is already thinking, I've got tons of gold.
I won't need these winnings at all. I have a Honda Civic in my garage.
And then we get another bit of foreshadowing here, quite a lot of foreshadowing, where Ron says, tell Percy he'd probably do a crouch and turn them in, which
Dun, dun, dun.
may not happen exactly like that, but Percy definitely turns a little bit like into a crouch and, turns his back on his family up for a bit.
Oh, Percy.
That's an interesting and unique theme that's specific to this book, is the family dynamic, comparing family dynamics. It's kind of an adult theme, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And this is, I was thinking too about how Barty Crouch and his son are really the only adult, parent and child relationship we see until later, with the Weasleys and everything. But such an interesting comment on family dynamics.
Yeah. And interesting too that Harry is not fazed by it because his family dynamics are so messed up.
Right. He's like, this must be normal.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, all families are messed up, aren't they? And then everyone's kind of like, well, no. And he's like, yeah, no, they are. I mean, he had a parent. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, Harry's like, well, the Dursleys totally would have turned me in and sent me to Azkaban, so, that tracks.
Right.
They already say that I'm no son of theirs. Well, I'm literally not. But they pretend like I'm not their family ever.
Yeah.
Which
all
is
makes
basically this. I mean, it seems like the Barty Crouch thing is way worse than, the Dursleys. It's just because of the way they're portrayed, though. Both situations are so traumatic and essentially the same, and there's no love between parent and child. Like, that's so messed up.
Except I think Vernon literally wouldn't go to Azkaban and switch out Petunia for Harry. I think he'd just sit with Petunia and figure out a way like, okay, so Lily's son has a lot of gold, and there's a way for us to get it, I'm sure.
Right.
Do you think to get to this Honda Civic?
Do you think Vernon would swap Petunia out for Dudley, though?
No.
Ooh.
I don't. I think Petunia would do it super fast.
Yes.
And I think Vernon would do it if Petunia asked.
But I don't think
Yes,
he would do it on
I
his own.
agree.
Yeah.
But that's what that's what happened with Crouch, is his wife told him to do it.
Yeah. I'm just saying I don't think he would do it on his own. But yes, I think he would do it if Petunia was like, yeah, swap us.
If it was the same.
I mean, what would Vernon even feel around the Dementors? He's so not self-aware. I'm pretty sure it would just be like a day that he got yelled at work.
No, a day that he didn't get to yell at somebody at work.
God, I remember this feeling of being silent at work all day. It was horrible.
Having his power taken away.
In his intro chapter, he has a really good day because he yells at some people, and then he does this, and then he yells at some people some more, and then
and then he got a donut. So the lack of yelling, and then no sweet treats in his stomach. There you go. That's it.
Yeah,
there you
go. Well, but besides Hermione thinking that school rules are suddenly silly, far cry from, or worse, expelled little lady over here.
Okay,
I was like, I read that line. I was like, that is a wild take, Hermione.
I often feel that Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix are Hermione's biggest character development books, because we go from her like literally breaking out or helping to free a convicted felon in Prisoner of Azkaban, and then suddenly she shows this great gusto for perspective in Order of the Phoenix, and then like. Not just perspective, but an action step forward in actively resisting authoritarianism. And then she, has like love interests and stuff in the next book, and then she's super helpful in the other one. But I feel like her actual character development, we get to see what has happened with her on these two books in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the main detectivism.
Yeah, and I put this in, and it's so ironic because this is also a PSA to myself. But listeners, 3 broomsticks PSA: sleep is important. You can see it in this chapter. People do not function well on little sleep. Try and sleep. Take a nap. Well, don't do it now, but
nap.
do it after you finish listening to this episode.
Or use Aurelia's voice as an ASMR on repeat. Take a nap, take a nap, take a nap, take a nap. Sleep for a while, come back up, and then come back to us. We'll wait. It's fine.
Yes, we will wait.
Have to hit the pause button.
But I also like, this is the moment where we get, as Sam's covered in the summary, where they're like, is it too early to talk to Moody? And Harry's like, yes.
Yes. Do you want to die?
But yeah, so we learned that they have talked about this all night, clearly gotten up early, continued talking about this. And they're still bouncing around theories, and we once again realized that nobody ever reads Hogwarts a history. Because when in doubt, the boys are always like, disapparate is the solution, right?
Okay, so I understand for book writing reasons, like why Harry can't read Hogwarts a history, because then all of us would have tons of information about how Hogwarts works that Rowling would have to like work around or incorporate or remember at any point. Because we still haven't really gotten to like a verified firm any sort of magic system, even in this book. We've got like, you think hard, and sometimes your thoughts do variations on spells, like with the Patronus. And I understand that character-wise, like there's just no way Ron would actually read Hogwarts a history. But it's a little frustrating from a creative writing standpoint to have like Batman's utility belt be a book that only Hermione has ever read, and she just, like, continues to drop knowledge just to help correct us, to show when things are or are not possible. And the convenience of, like, but Hogwarts history is out there, and Hermione's read it and memorized it, but nobody else has, is just, like, it's really, not my favorite thing, even though it's funny from, like, a recurring joke standpoint. I just kind of am like, I wish Hogwarts history, like, didn't have the rules of the school in there sometimes. It frustrates me.
Yeah. I like to almost think that sometimes they do it just to rile her up. Because, like, clearly the only thing that we as the readers learn about Hogwarts history is the disapparition rules.
And there's a chamber.
There's
she
not
doesn't
a chamber.
really
bring it up a lot other times.
Yeah.
So it seems to be the one thing that she keeps quoting from it. But I think it's almost demonstrates how much of a superpower Apparition is.
Yeah.
That, you know, even Ron, who's grown up, you know, in a wizard household, he's like, well, surely that's the solution to everything. You can just disappear and reappear somewhere else.
It's true.
It is a superpower. It's too bad Sherlock doesn't have it.
It must be hard for Auros to track down people who can literally just disappear in front of them.
It's kind of the same phenomenon in Star Wars, where
I was just gonna say
you, like, could go to hyperspace and nobody could track you up until we get to The Last Jedi. But before for the rest of all of Star Wars history before that movie, every time you just went to hyperspace, it was like, damn. Well, too bad.
We tried.
at least with Star Wars, there's only specific places that you can enter and exit hyperspace.
Yeah.
And so they have to reach a point. So they at least have, like, time to try to catch up. But with Apparition, it's literally like, am I here? Am I here? Am I here? Am I here? I can do it now.
Well, and I remember when Fantastic Beasts came out, there was pretty big speculation as to why Newt Scamander is going through a Muggle port on a ship instead of just apparating into New York. And for a while there, it was speculated that you must just not be able to apparate over large bodies of water. So, like, the English Channel, fine. But a whole ocean? No. And then it turns out that, like, it was because Newt had a magical suitcase that he didn't want the Americans finding out about. So he went through a Muggle port and, like, did the 2-week Atlantic crossing instead. And that's the reason why he didn't apparate into the States. But it's kind of just like, what the heck? But then they messed it up too, because then they have the port key at the Cliffs of Devon or whatever in the French movie. And, like, it was like, but can't Newt just apparate with Kowalski into Paris? No? What's happening? I don't understand it. So.
Yeah,
I think there has to be a lot of hidden rules about Apparition. Like, if it was more realistic, it would be like, it would be way more complicated and dangerous. I mean, they do explain that it's dangerous when the kids are learning it, but, like, kids are learning it? Like, I feel like even that is crazy. Like, this is, you're transporting your body through space. Like, that's complicated magic. Like, it's so different than, like, you know, bringing water out of your wand.
Yeah, that's Aquamenti. Water, look at that. Excellent.
Just the physics of it is pretty crazy.
Yeah. And
also, I think, even in this book we see it, that the students that they're bringing are all overage, but they're not traveling into Hogwarts via Apparition.
No, it's
because
through a
obviously
secret
you can't
portal
for
in the
Hogwarts.
lake, and then some flying horses with a carriage.
Well, I think, though, they do specify that that's because the same thing as a Quidditch World Cup. When they all get together, they want to show off. Yeah. So it's like, there's not much excitement about just, like, apparating into Hogsmeade and walking up to the school. But, like, we appeared through the lake. We appeared out of the sky. Those are, like, very dramatic.
Both of their, like, transport methods also then function as their, like, board.
Housing.
Housing.
Can you imagine having to show up to school early as a senior in high school and be like, dang it, I have to, like, get on this ship and learn how to sail, and it's going to take 4 weeks, and eventually we're going to reach this portal, and then it's going to pop us into the Black Lake, and then I just have to spend my entire year being taught only by Karkaroff, who sucks, in England.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it would be cool.
I would have thought it would make more sense to add those students where applicable to the Hogwarts classes.
Yeah.
Because
I
isn't
think
the
it's
whole point
weird.
is mixing and international
International
friendship
magical
building.
cooperation.
Yeah, and
It-
then you're like, but you stay on your ship and you stay in your carriage and please only come up for meals.
Yeah.
You 100%
Yeah, it's
know
weird.
that Snape is sneaking onto the ship to teach the dark arts at Durmstrang.
It's like, finally my chance has come.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, we got off on a tangent. Okay.
So unlike us.
I know, we never do anything like that. So after figuring out that once again you can't disapparate on the school grounds, Hermione makes enough good points that Moody tells Hermione that she would make a good Auror,
Woo!
which once again means, sorry, Ron, this career ain't for you.
Okay, but that's so funny because Hermione is the one who completely turns her nose up at being an Auror. She goes to the magical creature department and then she becomes minister for magic. Not in that order,
I have
like
a
there's
theory.
stuff in between. However,
I have a theory.
Ron does become an Auror.
I have a theory. It's all from this
Something
moment
tells
right
me
here.
Sierra has a theory.
It's
Hey,
all from
Hayley,
this
what's your
moment,
theory?
right here, right this moment. Ron is like, what? Harry would make a good one and Hermione would make a good one, but you're not saying anything about me. I'm going to show you. And Hermione is like, oh yeah, totally. Because she totally could. She would be exceptionally effective if she trained her skills up to the level that her mind is at. But potentially, because later she finds out that a Death Eater has given her this advice and compliment,
She's the only
that
one
she
smart enough
would
to be like,
specifically 180 and be like, heck no, techno. Yeah, that's my theory right there. But my question on this is, so coming from Moody, this would be a great compliment, which is why Hermione blushes and is all happy about it. However, Crouch is the one saying it. Do we think that this is potentially some form of an insult because we know what Crouch thinks about Aurors?
Whoa.
What do you think Crouch thinks about Aurors?
I mean, I think that he doesn't, I'm sure he thinks that they're mostly good at their jobs or whatever, but I don't think that he respects them. And I think that he, would very much like to rid the earth of as many as he can.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to pinpoint if what his exact thoughts about Aurors are, right? Does he think of them as like, okay, so these are highly specialized wizards who just happen to be an arm of a repressive government that we've got to fight against so that we can get back to the way things used to be, because the founding fathers of this government were all about muggles last and this, that, and he just is like full conspiracy theorist? Or is he like, yeah, no, these are highly trained wizards who I just happen to be up against, and so I'll kill them if I come across them. But you kids, boy, you two would actually be pretty good at this. Or is he doing it just to, like, get them on his side? Which is what I think it is. I think if it's going to be compliment or insult, it's going to be compliment. But I think it's neither. I think it's just him playing the part of trying to get these kids to trust him.
Interesting. It's especially interesting because the only reason that Harry ever actually goes into it is because he told him he would be good at it.
Yeah, for real.
I think there's a bit of also he kind of wants them to be able to figure out what's going on at the right time. Because even, at the end when Harry comes back from the maze, he takes him away and it's like, do you not see what's going on? Do you not understand what is happening?
Yeah.
And he's almost like bragging about, how brilliant his plans were and all of that. So I think there's a little bit of he's like, I want you to be able to understand how good I am.
Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of that, especially because, or not especially, but specifically because he needs the recognition, because, he didn't get to be in the graveyard. He didn't get to receive Voldemort's compliments firsthand. So he's gotta somehow get the ability to brag and tell everybody what he's done because he didn't get to be there in the moment.
Yeah. I also love that, as they're talking to him, he mentioned twice that Dumbledore's talked to him about them, which I'm almost like, I'm not sure if he's making it up and just giving that as a reason as to why he has this knowledge, or if that conversation actually happened. I would have liked to see that because it feels a bit strange for a headmaster just to talk to his new teacher, even though they're supposed to be friends and everything, to be like, well, these 3 kids, you need to watch out because they're, they'll fancy themselves investigators. And, they broke through all of these tasks in their first year and they managed to get past all of the little tricks we set out for them.
I think it's either one of 2 things. Either the conversation didn't happen, period. Or the first part of the conversation happened with hey, these 3, they're going to try to meddle, just put them off. And the second part did not happen because I don't see Dumbledore going into detail about all those things. I think Voldemort or Pettigrew told him about all the things that they've gotten up to. Potentially, not even directly, but just Pettigrew finds out that he's going to be at Hogwarts and he's going to be in charge of trying to get Harry out. And so they're going to have to, you're going to have to be careful because this is what they did. And in his first year, they already thwarted you this way. And, but the second year, they already, figured out the whole Chamber of Secrets thing because Pettigrew would know all those things because he's been overhearing them for a decade. So,
yeah. I just find it interesting that none of these 3 are at all curious as to why supposedly the headmaster talks about them.
I think there's probably some sort of we're not allowed to ask adults about what they talk about. There's that level of whether or not it's actual respect, that level of respect with teachers of okay, we know that adult stuff is totally completely off topic and we're not going to think about this too hard, which is why I think they don't really even mention it because they're all right, so that was interesting. But it also doesn't really fit the narrative for Rowling to include them talking about ooh, Dumbledore was singing our praises to Moody. Doesn't really fit the vibe of the book.
Yeah. True.
We do later in this very chapter see that clearly Moody is deemed important enough that he's in a conversation with Fudge and Dumbledore.
Yeah.
True.
Which I'm sure that is upon Dumbledore's insistence and definitely not upon Fudge's insistence. Because
or
at that
potentially
point,
Moody's insistence.
But Dumbledore's probably the one that's yeah, he should stay, versus Fudge is for sure. He's, you hired the person that once was great, but supposedly is crazy, and we know that Fudge believes into rumors and stuff like that.
Yeah. I also think that it's possible that Crouch didn't hear the Sorcerer's Stone part from either Voldemort, Peter Pettigrew, or Dumbledore, but that it's that's just gossip at the teacher lounge. Oh man, I've got Harry, Ron, and Hermione today. Those 3 have had such a big head ever since they got through the Sorcerer's Stone, and Moody's just what?
Do you know what? Especially since the moment that Harry's name gets pulled, you could imagine that the teachers are sort of why do you think this happened? Do we think he's good enough? How are his chances? And then people would be well, remember, he did, at 11 do this.
True.
And, at 12 go into the Chamber of Secrets, all of this stuff. So, yeah, I guess makes maybe a little bit more sense that the teachers are also a bit oh my god, this wild thing is going on. And we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess technically in that case, Dumbledore could have been in on that because he could have been part of one of those conversations of Dumbledore, how could you let him continue to compete? Well, remember, he has gotten through, whatever. So it could have been
he's been through more than you've been through in your entire life.
Yeah.
So it could have been not a one-on-one Moody Dumbledore conversation, but more of a generalized something.
I don't picture Dumbledore ever going to the teacher's lounge.
No, but I mean, like, not necessarily in the teacher's lounge. It could have been he, McGonagall, Snape, and Moody in the room after the champions leave.
Yeah.
Flitwick.
It's just because Dumbledore is like rarely occupying his time with running a school, so it's like I don't think he remembers that he maybe should check in with his teachers.
Flitwick and Sprout keep being like, "Can you guys stop having school meetings without us? I know Hagrid and Moody are your besties, but like, we are actually in charge of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw." And Dumbledore's like, "What are those again?"
Those are those other colors I see floating around in the.
Every time I pass by those gemstones, I remove points. So I don't have to look at them.
Besides all of the crazy stuff that happens at Hogwarts with the magic and the killing and the Voldemort, if you analyze it as a school in today's times, there are so many issues.
Yes, very, very many
Oh
issues.
my gosh. Bullying never addressed. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because
As far as diversity, I don't know. Discrimination definitely happening. People with money getting more privileges than others. Yeah, absolutely. There's just so many
I mean,
things.
if you think about it, it is like a school where everyone walks around with a weapon.
Yeah.
It's true.
that was something
None
that
of the teachers are
Adrian said in our-
vetted. Dumbledore just hires whoever he wants.
Haley, you're singing my song on this. I constantly talk about the lack of like administrative control, or like what is Dumbledore even doing? Like the fact that we only see teacher observations when Umbridge is involved is crazy. Like the fact that there's no school like response to the Chamber of Secrets until Dumbledore is removed, and then McGonagall, when she takes over, is like, okay, we will now be escorting everybody in between classes. And that's the only time when they actually start responding on a school-wide level to like a terrorist threat that's from inside your school is crazy.
You can just picture how Minerva was like, Albus, we should really do something. What do you think about escorting? And Albus was like, what? Yeah, they'll be fine.
That removes your freedom from the school.
That sounds like a hassle to organize. It's a lot of pressure. It's all right. And also, like, the next year, he's like, wait, what do you mean someone attacked inside the school? Let's move all the students into one room, please. That sounds like a good idea.
Like, capital punishment, the ability to, like, beat a student wasn't outlawed until 1970s here in California. And so, like, you run into teachers who've been around since then sometimes, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, but, and, you know, they'll see massive bullying or something, and they're like, yeah, our school's not really a problem, because it used to be so worse. And that feels like Dumbledore, who, like, went to school in the 1800s and was like, yeah, I mean, I used to have muggle killings once a day. Like, this school's great.
Well, like Filch
comparatively.
says, like when he used to be able to hang kids in the dungeon by their thumbs.
I don't allow that anymore.
He's like, I'm a great teacher. What are you talking about?
Fred and George
So
literally
true.
shove a kid in a vanishing cabinet and don't get any punishment
And there's
for it.
no consequences.
Like, he
Zero.
disappears for weeks.
To be
Dumbledore's
fair,
like, I'm sure he'll show up. I won't tell his parents until
Yeah.
he shows up.
Yeah.
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 Great.
Anyway. Talking about talking about adults who actually try and look out for Harry's well-being and health and safety. We get a moment of good guardian Sirius here, which personally I am always a bit upset that we only get this in this book. The rare glimpses of Sirius actually like really trying to help, whereas in the next book he's so moody and cranky that he's just like, yeah, whatever. But also, I like fair point to Harry, where he's like, who's he to lecture me about being out of bounds? I was like, yeah, honestly.
good.
Yeah, but there wasn't somebody actively trying to kill Sirius at school. Like, Sirius is the one trying to protect Harry from bringing back Voldemort, which he's very well within line for. And in the next book, he also straight up says why he does the total 180. He's like, last year we were trying to prevent Voldemort from trying to kill you. This year, we know he's trying to kill everybody, so it's kind of back to normal.
Yeah, it's so
There's no-
relatable as a parent, like what he says, because you totally contradict yourself depending on the point you're trying to make. Like,
oh yeah,
if you're trying to make your kid feel
1000%.
brave, or, you'll be like, oh yeah, I used to do this. I would climb to the top of the tree and jump down, You can do it. you can jump to the first branch, and then the next time you're trying to prevent them from getting hurt, you're like, I would never do that. You should never do that. That's a terrible idea. Like, you could literally, and I could see myself doing that. And so I'm like, I feel for Sirius. He just got thrown into parenting for the first time to a teenager who's someone's trying to kill him. That is a really tough parenting situation in general.
Can you imagine Sirius got out of Azkaban and he's like, maybe I should go back. This parenting thing is hard.
He's so stressed out.
God, I didn't know you could care so much about a person. This is crazy. Why do people do this?
Imagine him in Azkaban picturing what his life would be like if he was out and he could be raising Harry, and then he gets out and what it's actually like.
That's really funny.
I also like that, generally parenting is already hard, but then Sirius, who goes from having no child, goes to the most difficult situation to have this child now thrown into his life. It's not just like that, is a teenager. It's also the teenager that, the biggest, worst evil wizard is trying to kill once a year. So
good luck literally possessing him. Like, he's literally being possessed. You're basically raising Voldemort as a teen.
I think it's funny the sort of duking out that Molly and Sirius have about this as well. Because Sirius, you've got to know, has said to her at some point where he's like, I know you have 7 children and that you have a lot of expertise. You have no expertise raising a child that's literally trying to be killed by one of the most powerful people on the planet. And Molly's just like,
And also you've got, I know that you have experience raising children, but you've never raised a Potter.
Yeah. I know his dad. Molly's like, keep it. Just no defeating those 2 lines.
Yeah. But then we see Hermione being back to her more usual self. Not thinking school rules are silly. But she pretty much half predicts what actually is the case here, where she's saying they couldn't have made it look like an accident if they'd murdered you in the forest, but if you die during a task, which is the overall plan, is to get Harry through these tasks and obviously get him to Voldemort, but which is also, by the way, an insane plan anyway. But
yeah.
Side note, why was this the best idea?
I have so many thoughts in a second. Sierra, go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just like she's kind of missing the key thing, which is that he's not supposed to die during the task because he's got to survive long enough to get to the graveyard, which is like why he can't be harmed ahead of time. I mean, like, why? Like, just take him in the lake. Like, there's so many opportunities. Harry goes off and does dumb stuff all the time. There's so many opportunities to just snatch him, do your graveyard plan, and then like, whoops, Harry died.
It's because Crouch Jr. is like, I need to teach him how to duel first and teach him some stuff. Otherwise, it's not going to be fun for Voldemort.
Yeah, for real. Voldemort likes to play with his food.
Well, I mean, we do see that. He monologues like the best villains.
Yeah.
So.
So it is fascinating that everyone is worried about keeping Harry alive while the point is to keep him alive. Like the villainy, the villainry is trying to keep Harry alive just as much as everybody else, and probably doing it a little better. Because at least Moody's being like, there are dragons, you should fly. Neville, give him Gillyweek so he doesn't drown. I'm going to patrol and make sure that Crumb takes out Fleur and tries to take out Cedric. And oh my god, I forgot that Hagrid is a crazy monster fixation, and that Harry might die because there's an Acromantula or a Sphinx or whatever these fire crab chimera mixes are. Also, how the heck does Dumbledore allow Hagrid to mix a chimera with a fire crab? What on earth? How did he even get those two to breed together? So, while Moody's having all of those thoughts, he also, I'm sure, feels very frustrated by this very stupid plot by Voldemort. Because, there's gotta be something better. And I know the inference is that you have to wait for the potion for Voldemort's body to be ready, and like it just happens to be ready right during the third task. But you've got to imagine that Barty Crouch Jr. is like, there's got to be something more than grading thousands of papers while I wait for Harry to get to the third task, when I could just literally portice the doorknob of my office and ask Harry to go and fetch some papers for me, and then he just zerps into the graveyard whenever I want. Like, if you can turn the Triwizard Cup, a highly powerful magic object, into a portkey, he could do that anywhere. And I just don't understand why this is the plan. Like, this is the best, but I know that Voldemort's, like, quite dramatic, and that he really likes everything to have lots of meaning to it, but you would have thought at some point Barty Crouch would have been like, hey, I'm just gonna portkey his essay that I give back to him, and that's gonna be that.
Yeah.
How's that? How about I portkey his firebolt right before Quidditch match, and then it doesn't even look like I did it. He just grabs his broom and floop, there he goes. No, they quit. They got Quidditch gone? Yeah, but that's fine. I can do it during the first task. No? Oh, okay. I guess I'll just sit here and grade papers.
That's so true. There's so many options. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So many options. So many options. There's this great GIF that's been making the circulations around social media of Denzel Washington's character in, I forget which movie, but he's sitting there and he's kind of contemplating, and then he just slaps the desk super hard, and the caption is, Moody when he realizes he has to grade 700 papers just to get Harry to the task. Anyways, my rant is over. We can move on. It's a stupid plan. It's a stupid plan.
Yes, and as part of that stupid plan, fake Moody basically tells Ron and Hermione, he's like, you need to help Harry to be ready for the task, the third task, the maze. And we do see, and it'll happen over the next few chapters as well, but this is sort of the time we're seeing how they're doing that. And I've really sort of enjoyed these moments where we see them, working on preparing Harry and how, how they just work with each other and how they interact. So really sort of nice insight into the friendship. And it's just nice to see those moments, I think, before the big next adventure hits.
This is always really fun because I'm constantly reminded of when Skeeter and I were hanging out freshman year of college, because I was not in a task and had no magic, but I was in a one act called Dr. Magic, and I was cast as the titular role. And that role, there's 16 pages of script in that play, and it's basically all dialogue, very little stage direction.
Yeah.
And 14 of those 16 pages were my dialogue. And so it's you're basically memorizing a 45-minute speech, and it just was this gargantuan task to try and figure out how to do this on my own. And my scene partners didn't want to keep running only my lines with me all the time because they only had a couple lines. So Sierra and I Sierra would come over into the dorm room with, I think it was Brandon and Ricardo and Dylan. Anyways, not that anybody knows who those are as you're listening to the podcast, but my friend Brandon would run the other male character, and Sierra would run the other female character, and she would like correct me as I was going, and that's the only reason why I managed to make it to the one act and deliver those lines perfectly, was because Sierra was constantly helping me out. So when I read this section of Goblet of Fire, I'm like, no, this absolutely does happen. Sierra was my Hermione.
Yeah. It's just such a nice insight into their friendship. Also, I love the moment where, she's like, you're just not falling correctly once you're stunt wrong. And he is like, well, I can't choose how I fall once I'm,
he absolutely could. He could lean. He could absolutely lean back on his heels in the right direction.
But he's like, why don't you try? And she's like, no, it's all right.
I got it now.
We're good.
And considering this is the book where she introduces the whole house elf liberation, she's even happy to overlook the comment about Dobby, where everyone's like, why don't we just stun the house elf? He'd like to do it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but Dobby's getting paid, so Dobby would be fine. If she suggested Winky, she'd probably blow up.
Well, isn't Winky... I mean, Dumbledore has offered to pay Winky.
Yes, but
at
Winky
this point.
declined.
Yeah, but that was her choice. Hermione doesn't care about
But
that.
Hermione doesn't care about that.
No. Anyway, yeah. Okay, my question about this whole thing, though, is why do they have to sneak into classrooms to do this? Like, surely Flitwick or McGonagall would, like, let them use their room when the class isn't in session. Like, neither of them want to see Harry dead. And so maybe it's like, oh, we don't want to show favoritism, but, like, they could offer the same to Cedric. But, like, I feel like being able to practice your magic is important.
I mean, this is not even just for this specific scenario. This is a school about magic.
Right.
A lot of the time, their homework is practice your spells. Like where, like
in the common room,
there
it's
should
allowed,
just
but
be-
it's not allowed in the halls, and it's not allowed in on a like unsupervised location. So prefects count as supervision. So if you're in your common room and you have prefects, all right, so you're here from this time to this time, which does happen in actual British schools, then they're in a supervised location in the library, which they're not allowed to practice magic in, but in the library or in your common rooms. But you're not allowed to be in an empty classroom by yourself. You've got to be in a supervised location, which is how they work. I think, as Binge Mode used to call her, McGallions is only letting it happen because she's literally bet everything on Harry winning, but Cedric also touching the cup.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild that this is the one aspect of safety and security that Hogwarts has in place.
It's the one thing McGonagall has control over. She's like, Dumbledore's not actually in the hall, so I'll implement something.
Because everything else that is like completely fine, and they're like, but no, you need to be supervised when you do magic. I was like, oh, okay.
You should, I mean, there should definitely be like study hall but for like magic practice.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in the movies, Snape slapping people with books just willy-nilly. Capital punishment in front of all the students.
Well, and then we get the deleted scene from Chamber with the Hufflepuffs talking about Harry during study hall and stuff. But that's still just like quiet, like book learning time. I'm talking like, hello, we learned this spell about how to turn, a fowl into a water goblet or whatever the heck they do.
Yeah.
And so we're going to teach you in class, and then you're going to have to do it like as a test. It's like, when am I supposed to practice this if I don't get it during the limited, what did we decide? Hour and 15 minute a week of class time. And then I can't learn it. Like, when you should be able to practice.
It is funny that they don't get that much practical time on spells, and then when Dolores Umbridge is like, no practical at all, they're like, but the 5 minutes we get, you're gonna remove those 5 minutes, and they blow a gasket.
It's so vital.
Yeah.
That's must be why they love Lupin's class so much, is because he's just constantly practical.
Yeah.
Although Snape's is basically too. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, Hayley. You got Lupin into the episode and you didn't even try. It was me. I did it all along. That's great.
Yeah, it is quite interesting that, because you'd think it would make more sense to have, all these essays and whatever they write for homework. Those are probably more theory. And then the classes should probably focus more on the practice, because
Which we
that
see
is when they're...
We see that in McGonagall's classroom. It's practical. Sprouts is practical. Slughorn's practical. Flitwick is practical. McGallions is also practical. So they do a lot of practical in classroom. I think that's the point. It's supposed to be the controlled environment, because you don't want people hexing off their acne and disfiguring their face.
Yeah. And, divination is practical.
Is it? How can anybody do anything when it's heavily perfumed and hot?
Yeah, honestly, that should just not be allowed.
It really should not. I legitimately decide. There was a school, a college that I visited when I was trying to decide where I was going to go, and I legitimately decided not to attend that school because the class that I sat in on was not only too hot, but there was a train that ran right by the window. And
You
I
weren't
was
like, Hogwarts, I'm home.
well, I was like, how the heck am I supposed to focus if there's a train running by the window every 15 minutes? Because it was like in a state capital. And I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to focus?
Are you talking about Sac
How
State?
are any of you focusing? No.
Okay, never mind. Nobody can focus at all.
It was ridiculous.
It's terrible.
No. Terrible.
Speaking of being sidelined by side quests, I'd be sidelined by side trains for sure.
Yeah, but yeah. So divination class just seems like a recipe for disaster. However, we do get a very delightful little callback. Mars. Anybody?
Mars is
Placed yeah, Mars is placed most interestingly at the present time, we learn. So, callback. Mars is bright tonight. Anybody? Like,
I literally
Mars
have
doing stuff.
a poster. I have a poster that Katie Hayley, former co-host from Aureo, she gifted me when I moved here as a housewarming present. And it is a poster that says Mars is bright tonight.
That's
God,
awesome.
you are on the precipice of war every day.
Yes. But then also, because I've fallen into this Percy Jackson rabbit hole, like the whole like Mars and Neptune, and I just picture Poseidon and Ares in a fight. I was like, yeah.
That sounds right.
Love it.
But yeah, while we are in this way too hot classroom talking about planets, Harry has a hard time concentrating, and he can hear an insect humming gently somewhere behind the curtain. Who could that be?
I think it's really funny that Rita Skeeter is behind a curtain going, working, singing while I work, ba-da-doo-ba-doo-ba, but nobody knows because I'm a bug. Like, why is she making noise? She could just clutch onto the curtains and look. She doesn't have to fly the whole time. That's crazy.
She clearly needs to sing to concentrate or something. Or move around, or she has ADHD or whatever.
She can only stay... Yeah, for sure. She can only stay fly. Her flight only works as long as she's singing.
Yeah.
Music-based flight.
It's really funny. The only way I can get myself to fly is if I'm like, woo! Dear God. What a terrible podcasting experience. I'm so sorry to the listeners.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Sounds
we're really
delightful
on
to
it
me.
today with making noises.
All my noises. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's better than just weird silence while we make odd movements with our head or something like that.
Yeah. I was going to say that is always like when people are like, you can't see this listener, but the person is just doing that. I was like, well,
Yeah.
it is an audio medium, so
Yeah.
it's just good. But then we go to what is the title of this chapter. It is The Dream. And I always think within Goblet of Fire, the dream mechanics seem to be off from what we then learn in the next book with how occlumency, everything is.
Were
then
you above the
introduced and how
people?
working.
No, I was in the snake. Wait, really? Because last time you were above what?
And also, like, in this one, it literally is like, he is the owl, and then suddenly he isn't the owl, and it's just very overall confusing, his
I thought
perspective
he was
on
riding on the
things.
back of the owl.
Yeah. But,
Is he-
yeah, you're right. You're like, he's going in with the owl, but then he's just floating in
He's
the
just
room.
there.
Yeah.
It is very odd, for sure. Yeah,
And also, like,
riding
at
on the back.
top of the book, when he has that dream where he also, visits Voldemort in the Riddle House, essentially, he also has, like, he follows the Muggle into that
Right.
scenario, basically.
Yeah, it is weird because it's a third person of a third person perspective in both of these. And it's like, so it makes me wonder if possibly before deciding on like how she before she decided on how it was going to work, if she was maybe leaning more in the like his scar makes Harry slightly prophetic, like, kind of angle, before landing on, like, seeing things from Voldemort's perspective, because, yeah, it's like, it's almost like a prophetic vision, which makes sense why Trelawney's so excited when he has his little fit in a moment. But, like, it almost seems like it's more, I'm gonna see, I see things kind of from this, well, in this case, literal bird's eye view, of kind of coming into the situation. Like, there's something over here to see. Let me bring you into the room where Voldemort is talking about something with Pettigrew. And
I mean,
so
it's
is
certainly
very
like
weird.
very cinematic writing of like, you can clearly picture what's happening.
Yeah.
But like, from what we learned with Dioclemency and his connection to Voldemort, it makes no sense that Harry's seeing what happens before it's even in the same room with Voldemort.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is Voldemort also in this owl?
Yes, is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I guess is like, yeah, it is a very interesting, like, I don't know. Yeah.
I like kind of just assume now that it's a little messed up, but it's supposed to be like, it's like Nagini's perspective, especially in the first one, because when we get that dream that Harry's having, it's not actually stated that he sees everything that we see, right? He doesn't see Frank in the garden going up there. I think he just knows that there's a muggle and that he saw Voldemort's body and stuff like that. So I think in that one he's literally Nagini's perspective, but it's really hard to justify that in this particular dream.
Yeah, unless Nagini is taking a joyride on the back of an owl.
Which, like, that part might be an actual literal dream, right? Where he's like...
Yeah.
And that the house is just now part of his subconscious because Voldemort's thinking about the house and all of that sort of stuff. When we get in scene, I think it's possible it's Nagini's perspective. It's certainly not Voldemort's perspective. And there's not like...
No.
It's not like they're carrying around the ring and he's like looking through the eye of the ring being like,
Right.
oh, nice, cool.
But the owl plays a role in the scene. Like, the owl is delivering the letter.
Yeah, so maybe Voldemort is just hoping for an owl really hard. And Harry's like, oh god, I'm having a dream about an owl now.
Yeah.
It's not great.
It's definitely messy.
Yeah.
I think this is, against what she would like you to believe, where she had thought of absolutely every detail before she ever wrote any words about it. I think this is one of where it's proven that she hadn't figured everything out.
And I think that...
No.
I think that, like, that's the kind of the operative word for some of Goblet of Fire is messy, because she did the entire book in 1 year on the same timeline that she did the previous 3. And it's so much more book, and that's why they had to do a reprint. Like, it's just a little messy.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. Like, books are messy, but this is messy. Like, it certainly messes with stuff. And then you have to, on a podcast, 20 years later, talk yourself into a 2-hour conversation about, like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe the snake took a psychedelic and that's why Harry's, like, thinking it's all weird.
And then something else that is also confusing me, and I'm not sure if I just don't remember things properly anymore, or why I've never questioned this before. But why actually does Harry's scar start hurting here? Like, we see Pettigrew being tortured.
Yeah.
But, like, why, like, as he's waking up, he has pain. Like, I just don't understand the connection here to the pain.
The only way I can explain it is that Voldemort's feeling a strong emotion, which in this case is happiness, because he's got good news and he gets to torture Pettigrew some more. So that's the only explanation that I've got on this one.
Yeah, because also we, they are even more connected after the end of this book, because Voldemort uses Harry's blood and everything. But at that moment in time, we have established that the scar hurts when Voldemort is close. That is really it, as far as we know.
Yeah, I think this is it's not our first one, but it is one of the ones that starts off this idea of, like, strong emotions equals pain. And now that Voldemort he's in a body of his own, it's not a full body, we're going to start getting that, what comes to be, which is those visions of pure ecstasy or utter disappointment and destitution, where we see Rookwood or somebody like that getting tortured in book 5, and then Voldemort uses that to his ability for Sirius and all that sort of stuff. So it is establishing, I think, this for one of the first moments. Because his scar hurts with Frank's demise at the beginning of this book.
Yeah. I think the only, like, Voldemort is close, I think can also be interpreted, not necessarily physical proximity, but also, like, because it hurts him periodically as Voldemort is growing stronger. And then, so it's more like the idea of, like, Voldemort is not physically getting closer to Harry, but, like, he's closer to regaining his body. So it's, like, that kind of development, potentially. But then also, like, maybe this is the strongest Crucio he's been able to cast, and so, like, he is getting stronger, and this is, like, a physical representation, like, his magic is getting stronger, potentially. I don't know. That does...
Or Little Hangleton
There's a lot
is,
of
like, literally
ideas.
the next valley over.
Yeah, Little Hangleton is, like, conveniently situated right next to Hogwarts.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it for me boils down to she hasn't put the proper thought into how she wants this connection to work, but yeah. Anyway, Harry does then wake up as the scar starts hurting, and obviously Trelawney is ecstatic. It's like, you need to tell us what happened. Clearly something very exciting has happened. Which is also great teaching. Your student is in pain, and you're like, no, this is great. Tell us.
But that seems like every coach ever. Like, oh my gosh, you finally did the thing. And you're like, yeah, but my toe's broken. And it's like, yeah, but try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Harry escapes the situation with nothing lie, which in the history of using that as an excuse has just never worked, and particularly bad idea here, I think. It's like, clearly something happened. You were on the floor screaming in pain. You can't just be like, nothing, it's all good, I'll just leave.
I mean, if Attack of the Clones has taught us anything, you can fall off a spaceship onto sand dunes, roll around for a little bit screaming, and then get up and nothing's wrong. So I don't see the problem.
Yeah. But yes, Harry does excuse himself and tells us, or we as the reader are informed, he's not actually going to the hospital wing. He actually is following Sirius's advice and goes to Dumbledore. And I just love Dumbledore's password strategy. Like, do we think this is, like, intentional for Harry to guess, or is it, like, for everyone to guess, or is Dumbledore just not aware of what a password is and how it's supposed to work?
I think that I have two answers. One is what I think the actual answer is, and then one is my headcanon. So I think the actual answer is that it's just to show Dumbledore's sense of whimsy, and, you know, he has his scar in the shape of the map of the London Underground, and he's got, you know, his fun watch, and he's just an eccentric guy. But my headcanon is that he loves the idea of, like, pompous people like Fudge or crabby people like Snape having to say a candy before walking into his office, just to, like, kind of take him down a notch ahead of time. Because can you imagine, like, you know, Fudge storming down the hall, and he gets to the thing, and then he has to go, Drubal's best blowing gum. But, like, it kind of lets the wind out of your sails just a smidge before you go and face Dumbledore, or Snape running up and going, cockroach cluster.
I actually think that is what Dumbledore's doing.
Whisby.
because Dumbledore would have a lot of fun with that. It was like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'll make people do this. I subscribe to your headcanons.
I love it.
But also this takes us to one of possible 2 7-ingredient specials today.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Because as Harry is trying to guess the password, he names 7. Well, technically it's 8, but the one he quickly redacts himself. So he starts off with Pear Drop, which I don't think we ever got mentioned before this moment.
Nope.
It
Or
seems very
since.
unfamiliar to me. Then we have the Licorice Wand, the Fizzing Whizbee, Dooble's Best Blowing Gum. Then he throws in Bertie Bott's Every Flavor Beans, but that's the one he redacts when he says, oh no, he doesn't like them. We go to a standard one that we've been introduced pretty much in the first book, Chocolate Frog,
Nice.
Sugar Quill, and then finally we land on Cockroach Cluster, which Harry is surprised that one works because he's like, I was only joking. But also, I love that Harry is like talking to the gargoyles, like, it's really important, you just need to let me in. And I was like, nah, just no.
No, not the way it works. In fact, the whole deal of having a password is supposed to keep you from going into the headmaster's office, but also living quarters. So,
Yes.
like, the fact that this 14-year-old kid can just, like, walk up some stairs and be like, hey, I'm where you live, is not... Change your passwords, Dumbledore. This is not what an administrator is supposed to do.
But then, so Harry has cracked a password with his list of sweets. And he doesn't walk straight in because he gets too nosy and he likes to eavesdrop. And we can hear Fudge, Moody, and Dumbledore in conversation. And we get our, I think this is the first one for this book, but I may misremember something. But this is the first moment, I think, that we're seeing that Fudge is already going down the denial route.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Dumbledore's like, you need to take this seriously. Bertha Jorkins is probably dead. And Fudge is like, nah, it's fine. Ludo Bagman, of all serious people, has said she's perfectly capable of getting lost. We haven't found anything that indicates this is true, but it is fine. Let's not think about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Fudge is essentially sludge to any good ideas. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. It is also then the next moment of Fudge where I think this is less of a surprise, because obviously we have seen Fudge, the previous book, mentioning Prisoner of Azkaban again, being perfectly happy to kill a hippogriff. But here we see him is like, did you say they were walking past where Madame Maxime lives? You know, she's not a wizard. She's not a witch.
Bigotry!
We should consider her.
Bigotry. Bigotry. Bigotry, bigotry, bigotry. May we all aspire to have Dumbledore's courage for Sierra?
Sorry, I was fighting a baby.
Keep that in the episode. Keep that in the episode. Sierra fights babies.
Just struggling. You know what? Putting a diaper on a baby is really not an easy task, especially in your lap. Okay. Yes. No. Dumbledore just like straight up calling out Fudge for his prejudices. Amazing.
May
Amazing.
we all be like Dumbledore all the time. Love it. No notes.
Yes.
So good. Yeah.
And
just
then,
squash that one. For sure.
And then Moody calls out that they're actually being eavesdropped on. And this is where the chapter ends, just as, and I've told this to the others on the call here earlier. I was like, I was like, ooh, I want to see the pensive thing next. But that is the next chapter.
Not the chapter that we're going over. I know.
So that is chapter 30, so.
It's really interesting because this chapter is sort of bookended by very important, interesting moments. And a lot of this chapter is like speculation and getting some other storylines moving and dropping hints. And then there's like this idea of what Voldemort's getting up to, but it's not like super essential to Barty Crouch Sr. has shown up and now Victor Crumb has been stunned and now Senior's gone missing. And then here's the trial with what happened to Frank and whatever Frank's wife's name is. Alice is Longbottom, and also this is Barty Crouch Jr., and this is what Senior was like, and this is what Moody was like, and here's all this stuff,
this
Harry.
This is Bellatrix.
And so, yeah, here's Bellatrix Lestrange, right? And so the chapter summary was just kind of hard, because I really wanted to write all about the previous chapter or the next chapter, and so you just are like, wait, no, none of that is in this chapter. We have to go over what's the actual chapter. So... thanks. I feel like Trelawney and just have way too much vapor in my head.
But what we do have in this chapter is another 7 ingredients for today's second special.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes, 2 specials today on the house. So this chapter, as we have really talked about the whole way through, is full of foreshadowing and hints. So in no particular order, we have the hint for Percy being a jerk and going against his family dropped here. We have plenty of Crouch Jr. hints, because this is clearly the main mystery for this book. We also have a hint here with the mention of Dobby helping out while the trio trains, when, Dobby literally in the next book helps him out with setting up the DA and finding the room of requirements. We have mentions of Rita Skeeter, because she can't clearly sit still as a beetle, so she has to make sound, and this is where we get her mentioned. We just talked about this one. This is about Fudge being in denial. This is where we see that happening, which is a huge part, obviously, by the end of the book and for the next book. We have the side quest with Twins and Bagman and the mention of the joke shop. So we have that in there. And then, to Ron's dismay, we have Moody telling another one of his friends that an Aureo career would be suitable. And obviously we know that at least Harry takes him up on it.
Indeed, well gathered.
So yes, full of foreshadowing, this chapter. And then, as we like to do here at the Three Broomsticks when we do a chapter episode, we like to call out a sponsorship.
This chapter was sponsored by the magical shop where you get all of your treats and sweets, where you can find pear drops, apparently, licorice wands, fizzing whizbees, the best blowing gum by Droobles, some chocolate frugs, some sugar crews, and some cucrooch clusters, aka Hoonadooks!
Yay!
And as another Three Broomsticks PSA, I should just say, maybe watch how much sugar you want to consume in one sitting.
As Hermione's parents would tell you, floss, please, for the love of God.
But yes, that was our discussion of Chapter 29, The Dream. And thank you again so much, Hayley, for visiting us today at the Three Broomsticks.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
If I had less children, I would have talked more. Maybe. Next time, they'll be older and less needy.
Less needy?
Differently needy. You should just do what Sierra does and fight babies.
Yes. I do a lot of that.
Our third and final PSA from the Three Broomsticks. Fight babies.
They deserve it, sometimes.
Do you have anything that you want to plug or shout out or
have less children?
Social media?
Stop at 3, it's enough. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just happy to join. Happy to keep listening to Harry Potter. Always would be a fan.
Excellent.
Nice. And if you enjoyed your time at the pub today...
you know what? I do have one thing.
Oh, yeah?
I went to see the Cursed Child at the Pantages Theater, and it was 100% worth it. Would recommend.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Well done.
Cursed Child plug.
When I read the screenplay, I was like, but seeing it live was great. It was very cool, very magical, very worth it.
Yeah, super worth it as an actual experience.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is it now one part, isn't it? It's not 2 parts anymore. Am I getting that
No,
right?
they fixed it up. It's great now. It's 1 part. There's lots of cool magical stage tricks.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree. Having seen it live, I don't know, I think 7 years ago, because that is apparently how time works.
Oh God.
Yeah, I saw it like in previews before it officially opened at the when it was still 2 parts. But yeah, I would agree. Seeing and experiencing it live was amazing. You just don't think too hard about what the plot is.
That's kind of
that would be my advice.
That's kind of plays in general. Plays are like, if you don't think too hard, this is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. It was
so. If you enjoyed your time at the pub today as much as Hayley did at Cursed Child Play, please don't forget to rate and review us online or tell your friends about our show. If you have Harry Potter friends, tell them. They should definitely give us a listen. And huge thanks again to Sam Orman, who brought us this round of drinks.
Yeah.
And sponsored 2 specials today.
Well done.
And if you'd like to buy us the next round, head up over to the patreon.com/3broomsticks with the numeral 3 to sign up.
Would you like to find us on the interwebs, filled with online spiders who web different weaves? Well, we're there. We're on various different social media channels, which are linked on our website and in the show notes. Do you want a change of emojis that make you think? Do you get a heads up on your recommendation for reading next episode? Would you like to be reminded that none of us are your mother? Well, we share our upcoming Patreon schedules, reactions, emoji titles of our upcoming chapter episodes, and we want you to guess on those too. So you can head over to any of our little things that we have that deal with social media. Also, we have a website, which is not a site filled with webs. In fact, it is filled with podcasts. So if you go to 3broomstickspod.com, that's with the 3 spelled out, you could, submit a topic to us. If you want to hear us talk about how on Earth a chimera and a fire crab can breed, we won't do that. But pretty much everything else absolutely is on the table. So please let us know your thoughts and what you'd like to hear about. We do actually talk about all of that during our big meeting in the fall or winter to the previous year. Yep, that's it. We go in the past. We start in the future, send ourselves notes in the past. We're Looper, but for podcasts. Anyways.
I am so confused, and I know what the meetings are.
But the next time we meet at the 3 Broomsticks, we won't be dealing with all of that. We'll be discussing Harry Potter as a rom-com. What does that look like, guys? We'll find out.
I'm telling you right now, Rupert Grint is the main star. It's not Daniel Radcliffe.
Yes. It's gonna be great. All right. I'm Sierra.
I'm Sam.
I'm Aureo. Thank you for listening. See you next time in the 3 Broomsticks.
Cheers!
Yay!
Give me 3 old buckets of
butterbeer.
Give me 3 buckets of butterbeer.
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The 3 Broomsticks was edited by Brittany Fisher. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
I am also recording. I had to turn my gain down. I've got people talking outside my office.
Amazing.
Who forget
that you're recording.
That it's... Well, no. They know I'm recording. They forget that walls are friggin' paper thin in this house.
You need like a sign that says like, stop talking. You're
recording
you're
in broadcasting.
Only allowed to breathe.
Yeah.
Feel lucky.
4-year-old can't read yet, so.
You should really work on that.
Yes.
I love that chapter summaries have now evolved to have stage directions.
Yes, you're very welcome. I mean, I made Sierra sing a whole song, so I feel like it's
you
only
did.
fair.
You did make me sing a whole song. Because you dared write a whole song and then not be on that episode, which is frankly so rude.
It was great. It was set to Santa Baby, and it was incredible.
It was from the perspective of the firebolt.
That's right.
Which meant that it was incredibly not appropriate for children.
It was, oh man, that was such a fun one to write. Because Santa Baby is also not appropriate for children.
Not real. I mean, yeah, the way that it is sung,
it
is
great.
not appropriate for children. Thank you, Eartha Kitt, for being a delight.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Yzma!
Yes, exactly.
Okay, should we
Is
start?
That my voice? Fantastico.
Are we doing it in Italian today?
Sì.
Bienvenuto.
Bienvenu. Arrivederci. That's all I know.
I am actually
With
learning
a
Italian.
fagioli.
All right, here we go. You translate the entire first section of Welcome to the Three Broomsticks into Italian, please.
Bienvenuto, trio, and that's about it.
Excellent.
Oh.